Hello there, my name is Ismail and welcome to Top Channel 111. So if you have been following the channel lately, I have seen my tutorial series on how to make a video game using Blender and Unreal Engine. So this is a sample just of some of the tutorials. So we are trying to make this kind of video game set up in the medieval age, just a bow and arrow shooting around different things. And I'll be making the tutorial series, and I'll also be making other Blender tutorials on making the assets that are going to be used throughout this game series. So for today, we're going to be making this a target thingy, and yes, let's see how to approach this. So it looks very simple at the beginning, but if you want to create this coil thing here, it can be really difficult. So I found an easier way to do it, and this is why I want to make this tutorial. So let's go in and try to make this. So I'll switch on my shortcuts here. Let me drag them to the right and get started. By the way, if you want to get the assets that are going to be used in this tutorial, the project files, even any project files that you want that I make here, you can find them on my Patreon page. That way you can support me to continue making this tutorial. So let's get to it and see what to do, how we can approach this. So I think the hardest part is making this coil here. You can try using what is it called? You can try using the screw modifier, but I don't think it works very well here. So let's find that first. Where is it? Screw. Again, you just have to move it to the side and increase. You would think this would work, but the problem with this is that it just makes. Let me remove these vertices so that you can see what I mean. It simply makes. Let me delete this as well. It just makes screws everything in a vertical axis instead of an X and Y plane, so that it's coiling around and stuff like that. So the trick I found is that you can add a circle mesh. Make sure you have enough vertices. So I think 32 is not going to be enough because we need to coil this around a few times. So I'm just going to subdivide this even further, and then use instead of selecting everything and then subdividing, because that is going to mess up the radius, this smooth radius of the circle. What I'll do, I'll just add the circle back and just multiply this by 2 so that we get the same subdivision, maintaining the smooth circle of our circle. So then what you want to do is select any vertex. So I will select this and then delete it. Then select another one so that you turn on proportional editing. Switch the editing, switch the type to connected, and then also make sure that you have the cursor in the center of the selection and change the pivot point to 3D cursor. Then rotate this a few times. As you're rotating, make sure to increase the radius of your fall off, and then rotate this a few times. Also make sure that as you increase the radius of the rotation so that you have uneven distribution of vertices around your coil, and you can rotate this to some degree, maybe up to there, and then scaling. So you can see how we are making the coil start. Then we can scale this again, rotate this again a few times, and then scaling. And we see we have a lot of concentration of vertices here than the outside. So we can rotate this and then reduce the fall off distance so that we can evenly distribute those vertices. And then again, you need to scale in as you increase the fall off. think that's good enough, but we can also come in again, reduce the fall off, and rotate this again. Make sure that you maintain the fall off. But you see, it calls in and then start folding on itself. So I'm just going to turn off proportional editing and then start extruding this manually until we get something equivalent to that. And now, yeah, we are left with this coil that you can see is fairly proportional in how it's coiling. Yeah, so then after, let's make a duplicate of this so that we have a backup here, and then right click, actually select the object and then go under to this menu and then convert this into a curve so that we have a curved object like this. And what we want to go to is the curve settings here and change the geometry, increase the bevel depth like this. If you're using, depending on the version of Blender 2.8 you're using, you might have, or if you're using Blender 2.9, is it 7.9 and below, you may have to change the fill mode from I think half or back. Make sure the fill mode is set to full so that you have the entire radius of the curve filled, and then also the bevel depth I think is a bit, no, actually the resolution of the bevel is set to 0, so you want to increase in previous versions of Blender, so you want to increase this to about something sufficient to get a smooth curve like that. And now we can turn on smooth shading, and you can see we have, let me rotate this to face the camera on the y-axis, and see we have something I think that looks good enough for our target. Now we can use textures and other things to give it that look that we want. Another thing we can do is this hair is usually not as rounded at the corners here, so let me convert this into but before I convert it to a mesh, let me see if I can do something here to reduce the intersection, how these are intersecting with each other. So maybe let's first reduce the bevel width, and then select this one here, the middle vertex, and then use Alt S. Make sure you also have proportional editing turned on, and you can change the pivot point back to the median point, and just to reduce some of the intersecting we're seeing there. And also try moving around or delete some of the vertices. I think that's good enough. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, so we can distort it just a bit like that. Now we can convert it back into a mesh. Object, convert mesh. You can see what we have now. So we are having a few intersecting polygons here, so we can come in and dissolve those. Let's find others. I think that's good enough. Again, as I was saying, this is usually not that rounded off, so I can come in here, select these polygons, or select this middle polygon. You can see it just goes around and coils, so we can just bevel this so that maybe, yeah, you can just coil this so that it looks like that, and then select these vertices, push them out a bit. You can leave one proportional editing if you want, but let me just switch it off. And so we have something like that, like that has good thickness here. And now let's see, what can we add? What else can we add? You see, this coil is put together by these ropes here. So to kind of give that effect, we can select a few rings here, like these, maybe these. They don't have to be evenly distributed, so we can select just maybe that, maybe even here. Remember, we do have a backup, so in case we make any errors, we can just go back to the backup and make changes we want there. So again, don't have to be evenly distributed, and depending on how detailed you want to be, you can choose to have more of those, I don't know how to call them, but I want this to be a game asset, so I want to keep the resolution quite low. So I'll just bevel this, Ctrl B, and then use my middle mouse wheel to add a single loop like that, and you can hit Ctrl I to subtract and to deselect some of the rings and only remain with the middle rings, and then you can use Alt S to push those in like that, so you can see what we are remaining with. So if we're doing this for a high resolution render, then you can add in a subdivision surface, and you would have something like that. I think this loop is too close, so we can do that so that this is a bit rounded off like that. Another thing we want to do, I should have kept that selection, so I'll just do undo. I'll remove these loops later, and then I can Shift D to duplicate the rings, and then hit P to separate the selection. So if I hide this, you can see what we have. We are remaining with the rings. So now we want to turn them into these straps, into those straps, and see how we can do that. So I was thinking of different ways to do this. So if I do have this selection, Shift S, cursor selected, I can select everything and then extrude and then rotate just a bit. See, we get that. What gives us the same straps as we want. So let's make sure you do unhide everything. We can go on and turn on random colors just so we can see the different rings. The problem is they're now inside of these. So let's see how we can scale them. We can try scaling. We can scale them out like that. Let me make sure that I have random colors turned on so that I can see these. Or we can select everything, go to edit mode, and use Alt S to push them around along their normals like that. Now you can see that we have that. The problem is they're not coming outside this side. Let me try doing this again. Maybe apply scale and rotation. So that is not working very well. So what we can do then, let me see. We can scale this, I think. Let's try scaling it on the X and Y plane. Let's see. So it's the outsides that are failing us. So we can just select them directly. Select the first ring. Maybe even the second ring. Basically, and scale it out. Maybe turn on proportional editing and then push it out a bit so that those come out. You can also just come in and start pushing them out. Another way to do that is make sure you still have those rings selected. Unfortunately, we don't, so we need to go back. Let me first turn off subdivisions. We need to go back and reselect all those rings. Let me see if I can select by length. Yeah, you can, but you're also selecting other things you don't need to select. So let's just go in and select these manually. So make sure you get all those rings. Another way to make sure that you don't lose the selection, in case you want to come back to this selection, you can just go to edit mode, make sure you're in edit mode, and then go to these object data, and under vertex groups, create a new vertex group and then assign. So if you deselect everything, you can reselect the vertex group you created there, like that. So I think we may need a few more rings in here, but just for the case of the tutorial, I'll just leave that and select this again. Shift D to duplicate them. Why are they? Did I use Shift D? Select. Shift D to separate them, and then P to separate them from the entire mesh. Okay, I'm not seeing where they are. Okay, they are here. So after you separate them, you can convert this to a mesh again, sorry, to a curve, and then increase the bevel. And we see we have a few issues there, but we can come back to those later. So we can also unhide this just to see how this is working. So I think something like that. You see we don't have that issue where the outsides of these rings are intersecting with the mesh. So, but because again this is going to be for a game asset, I want to work with a low resolution mesh, so we don't need the insides of these rings. So we can come in and change the fill mode to, let's see what would work. Have back, we have front, and we have half. Okay, so let's just keep it to full and then just edit them manually. So we need to convert. Let me first hide this part. So we need to convert this back to a mesh and then select these inside rings. We have an issue here, so let me select that ring, then fill this again, sorry, bridge these edge loops again, like that. And again we still have we have one issue here, so we can come in and do that, maybe even slide rotate this a bit. So we won't need these inside loops, so I can start deleting them like that. And if I unhide, you can see that we won't see that we have deleted them. And I think we should have reduced the resolution of the bevel before we converted this into a mesh. So let me undo this. Yes, so undo this until it's a curve and reduce the resolution. I think a resolution of 2 is good enough, and then convert back to a mesh. Then Alt H. Again, we would need to delete these inside loops. Let's see if we delete. Yeah, we need to delete quite a lot, a big portion of that. So, but I'm not going to do this right now. Yeah, so this is what we have so far. Now we are left only with texturing and maybe adding the spot for this this base here, yeah, I think we're good to go. So the texturing part is going to be a time lapse instead of a step-by-step tutorial, because I have to figure out how to make this kind of texturing here. And yeah, so we need to close off also this side here. Also remember to remove these edge loops here, and maybe you can UV unwrap these right now. So I'll just add a ring there, Ctrl E, maxing. So let's go to shading and create a new shader, and then a new image texture. Make sure it's UV grid, and then connect these, and we can unwrap this. So let's look at our UVs. They're quite stretched, so make sure you apply scale and rotation, then UV unwrap again. And I think we need to break this up a bit. So there's a lot of stretching going on here, and it's also creating a lot of stretching throughout the UV. So we can first break it off somewhere here. I think this is this part here. So Ctrl E, maxing, and I'm going to add it. I'm going to add the same just in the middle here, because it will be covered by our strat here. So Ctrl E, then unwrap. That should reduce on the stretching. And I can also, to maximize the UV space, can come in here around the middle and add a seam there. Because this seam is going to be covered by this, I'm not so worried at where I'm going to add it. So unwrap. Now that should maximize our UV space. I can also just maybe add a few more seams. Yeah, so we have, you can also try reduce the stretching you have here by going under UV's minimize stretch. You can see that will try to clear out some of the stretching we have. You also need to have to create UVs for these rings here, but to make this the process easier, first delete those inner rings. I won't worry too much about that. First delete those inner rings. Make sure I have most of them selected, like that. I think that's all. So I'll just expand this a bit and then delete faces. So now we can unwrap. I'm not going to worry too much about this. Maybe I can just come in and start. Let me unhide. Link. Make use of this same material or texture. Now you see they are rounded rings, and that takes up a lot of UV space. So I can come in to each and add a seam somewhere like this. Ctrl E, max seam. That should straighten them up and maximize our UV space. So I just need to come back in here to each one of them. Ctrl E, max seam, unwrap. You can see how the space is getting better used. You can see in some areas we have more polygons than on other rings. So what I'm going to do, like here, you see we have too many polygons here, and we need to reduce the polygon count because this is going to be a gaming asset. So let me first mark up seam here, Ctrl E, and show you how you can reduce some of the polygons you have. So since we have minimized our UV space, maximize our UV space, I can right click, make sure you are in vertex mode, right click, remove doubles, and just increase the merge distance just a bit to reduce some of the polygons. You can see now we are removing a lot of it, so let's increase that a bit. You can see we have started to remove some of the extra polygons that were there. Let's see. but make sure you don't remove too much. And I think that's enough, and now we can unwrap again. Yes, so if you're having issues like this, you can select that, or you can make sure you're in edit mode, turn on this, and so that it can sync your selection with the mesh, and you can just select that part and see, zoom into that area and see what's going on. So we have a few issues here, and I think the easiest way to remove those issues, delete that, and I think we can merge this with this, and this with this again. I don't think we need this edge loop there, so we can unwrap that, and we have our hey target. So I'll create a new folder here, call this let me make sure it's in April. Actually we are in March, April, May. So this is May target hey. Yeah, so in the next part we'll be looking at texturing this. I think I'll be doing that as a time lapse instead of step-by-step tutorial, because there's going to be a lot of experimenting, and yeah, that is not always fun showing up. So yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you want the project files, or if you want to download any of the models, and also make sure to check out the tutorial series if you want to get into game development with Unreal. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next